All right, let's talk about one of the most exclusive clubs in all of sports. And getting in isn't about winning one big tournament. It's about proving week after week that you are, without a doubt, the best golfer on earth. The key to this whole thing? Well, it all comes down to one single number. So let me ask you something. The official World Golf Rankings started way back in 1986. Since then, how many players do you think have actually reached that #1 spot? Take a guess. The answer is just 25. That's it, 25. In nearly 40 years of pro golf, only a tiny handful of guys have ever climbed to the absolute peak. I mean, that's not a list, that's a fortress. So let's dive into our first section, golf's most exclusive club. Because that tiny number, just 25, it tells a massive story. It really forces you to look at being #1 as more than just a stat. It's the ultimate measure of sustained, hardcore excellence in a game that's literally decided by inches.
And this right here gets to the heart of a huge debate in golf, doesn't it? Is winning the majors all that really matters? We put those guys on a pedestal, right? But what about the player who's in the hunt, contending every single week? Is that kind of relentless consistency, the kind that gets you to #1, a different and, maybe even a tougher kind of greatness?
To figure that out, let's go to our second section, the first kings. We've got to go back to the beginning, back to 1986, when this whole ranking thing was born, and meet the very first guys to wear the crown. So, the first guy to ever hold the title? Germany's Bernhard Langer. But his time at the top was, well, blink and you'd miss it. Just 3 weeks. He was immediately knocked off the throne by the absolute legend, the charismatic Seve Ballesteros from Spain, who held on for a solid 61 weeks. But by that fall, a new force was coming, all the way from down under. And that force was the Shark, Australia's Greg Norman. And honestly, his career is the perfect case study for what we're talking about. Look at this. The guy held the #1 ranking for a mind-boggling 331 weeks. That's more than 6 years at the top of the game. And yet, he only won 2 majors. Kinda crazy, right? His range just proves that this ranking rewards something totally different. It rewards that relentless, week after week grind, even when you're dealing with absolutely heartbreaking losses in the biggest moments. Okay, Section 3, the Tiger Woods era. So Greg Norman basically set the bar for what dominance looked like. And then, one player came along and just took a sledgehammer to that bar. It was time for Tiger. Just look at that number, 683. Let that sink in for a second. That is the total number of weeks Tiger Woods was the world #1 golfer. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around it. We're talking more than 13 years combined. To put that into perspective, Tiger was #1 for more than twice as long as Greg Norman, who's second on the list. But here's the craziest part. His longest consecutive run was 281 weeks. Just think about that. For over 5 straight years. 5 years! Nobody else on the entire planet even got a sniff of that top spot. I mean, if you need one single stat to truly understand how dominant he was, this is it. It wasn't just that he was #1. The gap between him and the rest of the field was an ocean. He had more ranking points than the #2 and #3 guys combined. This level of separation, it's never been seen before, and honestly, I don't think we'll ever see it again. Which brings us to Section 4, the revolving door. So, what happens when a reign like that finally ends? You get a power vacuum. The whole era after Tiger became a totally different story. It was all about chaos, volatility, basically a revolving door at the top of the rankings. And the guy who finally broke that insane 281-week streak, that was England's Lee Westwood. And he is the perfect poster child for this new era. An absolute model of consistency, got to #1 for 22 weeks, and guess what? He never won a major. Then you had other guys like Martin Keimer from Germany. He basically caught lightning in a bottle, rode a huge major win all the way to the top spot for a pretty fleeting 8 weeks, and then poof, he was gone from that peak for good. And then there was Luke Donald, who just took consistency to a whole other level. This guy held the #1 spot for 56 weeks, he topped the money list on both the PGA and European tours in the same year, which is incredible, and again, did it all without winning a major. So in this totally chaotic, super competitive time, it kind of felt like long-term dominance was dead. But then, Dustin Johnson came along and proved it was still possible. He held on for a 64-week stretch, which was the longest run anyone had managed since Tiger himself. A real throwback.
Okay, final section, the ultimate achievement. You know, maybe the most compelling case for why this ranking is so important isn't actually about who's in the club, but who's been left out. This is where the whole argument just becomes undeniable. I mean, just look at this list of absolute legends. Phil Mickelson with 6 majors. You've got Hall of Famers like Payne Stewart, multiple major winners like Retief Goosen, Bubba Watson, John Daly. These guys are icons of the sport, and not a single one of them, not one, ever reached world number 1. It's wild.
And if you need that one final stat that proves just how impossible this climb really is, listen to this. For the equivalent of 5 full years of his career, Phil Mickelson was ranked world number 2. 5 years. He was an all-time great, playing unbelievable golf, but he was stuck behind a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-century phenomenon.
So what's the secret sauce here? Why is it so hard to get to number 1? Well, it really all comes down to the system itself, the official World Golf Ranking, or OWGR for short. See, it's not designed to reward one hot week. It's this complex formula that's constantly analyzing every single performance you have over a rolling 2-year period.
Okay, so here's how that works in plain English. Yeah, winning a major gives you a massive points boost. Of course it does. But you absolutely cannot coast on it. The system is like this constant churn. It's always moving. It's specifically designed to reward the player who shows up and plays elite golf every single week. Because your old results, they're always fading away.
And that, right there, is the big takeaway from all this. Winning a major, it gets you into the history books forever. You're immortal. But reaching world number 1, that signifies something different. It is the ultimate validation. It's proof that, for a good chunk of time, you were the most consistently excellent, week in, week out golfer on the entire planet.
So all of this leaves us with one final question to chew on. This current era we're in, with all this volatility, the top spot changing hands all the time, is that a good thing? Is it a sign of a healthier, more competitive sport with tons of talent? Or are we all just kind of waiting for the next Tiger to come along and just make the game his own all over again? Something to think about.